Today, as part of leadership series, I will be talking on healthy and unhealthy conflicts. How to cope with conflict. When it comes to information flow, faster is better, and it is true that when we have great roads, cars can move quickly from A to B. And what is the connection between these two ideas and infrastructure? The better your infrastructure, the better things can move around. What does this have to do with your team? We are going to show you how social architecture and social infrastructure play a crucial role in determining how quickly your team can respond to change. In this video, we are going to be looking at conflict. Conflict is something that happens naturally when people come together. So it is important to understand that conflict is a natural and healthy occurrence. Your goal as a leader is not to eliminate conflict in the team, it is to find a way to harness its beneficial properties and minimize the challenges that come from unhealthy conflict. The key point is to recognize is that conflict emerges when people disagree with each other. Okay, that sounds really obvious, but the real difference is in recognizing why people are disagreeing with each other, and this is where we start to understand difference between healthy and unhealthy conflict. Healthy conflict arises naturally because people are trying to find the best way to achieve the goal, and whatever happening is that they have different ideas and opinion about how to best achieve the goal. So people will tend to have conflict because they are being honest with each other, and they are challenging each other, and they are pushing each other to get the best result. Healthy conflict is important in any team because it drives creativity and also importantly makes sure that people are engaged with reality and not living in a fantasy world, a bubble world that they create for themselves. Environments that have a low level of healthy conflicts tend to be a less creative place, and they are disconnected from what is the really going on. When we talk about creating an innovative workplace, we have to recognize that one of the key requirements of innovation is a conflict, that you will be willing to change the status quo to disagree with what people say. Conflict, overcoming conflict builds mutual respect and understanding. That's why it is bad to block conflict, as people simply end up hating each other and disrespecting each other in secret, which is much more insidious and difficult to deal with. To have a healthy work environment, it is important to allow healthy conflicts to be expressed, to provide a space and time in which people can be honest with each other a little bit in an appropriate way. What becomes the damaging is when conflict becomes unhealthy, and unhealthy conflict, if unchecked, can create a toxic atmosphere of negativity and disrespect. Unhealthy conflicts arises when people do not respect each other. It is characterized by personal attacks and by a desire to beat the other person. As a leader, you are responsible for your team's environment. It is unhealthy. If unhealthy conflict is crippling your team, then it's your responsibility to make sure it is resolved. On the other hand, while you want to reduce unhealthy conflict, you also want to encourage healthy conflict in the right kind of way. This allows people to express important truths and prevents the feeling that we are living a lie. You do not want that because that creates a sense of inauthenticity, and it makes you to look weak as a leader because everyone recognizes that you are not willing to get to the heart of the real issue. So, in summary, what is the main point that we are trying to make here? The point is that conflicts is natural and healthy if done it properly, and your ask is to make sure that you maximize the healthy conflict and minimize the unhealthy conflict to create the maximum possible level of innovation and productivity. How can you do that? This the basic recognition here is that it is up to you to make judgment calls. or what is the healthy and unhealthy conflict. There is no absolute right and wrong here. It is about recognizing where the boundaries and of behaviors are, and then enforce those behaviors boundaries so that people can make sure that they are disagreeing with each other in a productive manner rather than slipping into personal attacks. So in front of you, you can see our healthy and versus unhealthy framework, and you can use this tool to help you make a better understanding of the current reality in your team. On the left, you will see 7 rows which describes key things to look out for when the conflict is occurring. Now, I am going to go through every issue in detail here. I am just going to draw your attention to a few key points. The first thing to recognize is the way in which the conflict is dealt with. In the first row, we can see that healthy conflicts is quickly addressed. That means it doesn't take a long time for people to share their differences with each other and to make sure that they have resolved. Unhealthy conflicts is characterized by the fact that it takes a long time, if at all, for conflicts to be resolved. Instead, it is always there simmering tensions under the surface that are never properly expressed. As a leader, it is important to make sure that if things are getting difficult and contentious, yes, it is your job to step in and make sure they are quickly resolved. Do not let them simmer and poison the team. Think about the way in which the people are treating each other. People who disagrees but have a respect for each other and very different from the people who hate each other and are just out to put each other's down. The key difference focusing on the different areas in healthy conflict. It is driven by desire to find the best idea or find the solution, whereas the unhealthy conflict, it is focused on attacking the individual person. As a general rule of thumb, you never ever want to focus on the person's individual identity. So, for example, you never want to say you are stupid. Instead, what you have to say, you would say is that was an inappropriate action or behavior. That was a stupid thing to do. Now, the difference there is that by focusing on the individual, the unhealthy approach, you are putting that person down. You are attacking their identity and making them feel weak and small. And so that either has consequences. First, it might cause them to hate you and fight and be frustrated against you. Or in the second option, it might put them down and make them less participative in the future, which is also a problem because you have a less engaged individual. That it is much better to focus on the behavior and say that was a stupid thing to do, but let's put it behind us and focus on making things better now. It is important to not sweep things under the carpet and pretend that nothing has happened. If there has been a mistake, it needs to be acknowledged, but there is no point dwelling on it. Focus instead on enabling the individual to correct their behavior rather than putting them down. If we think about things like verbal and body language, we can see that unhealthy conflict is driven by people who are out of control. They are very angry, typically and get more and more frustrated. They typically will lose the plot and act in an irrational manner. They enter this world of rage where they feel that everything is against them and they have to lash out in order to protect themselves. This is clearly a very dangerous and difficult situation to deal with, and some of the most practical things that you can do is simply enforce a timeout and ask people to create some space by walking aside, getting some fresh air, and then reconvening again. And also, an important difference between the two is focusing on outcomes. Healthy conflict is always working towards resolving the issue at hand, whereas unhealthy conflicts typically goes round and round in circles with people accusing each other over the and over again of the same stuff. Focus on making sure that the conversation and discussions are moving towards an outcome. You should be a facilitator, not necessarily the complete arbitrator of the peace. The people need to make sure that they are moving towards agreement themselves. You are simply facilitating the process. And then finally, do not underestimate things such as space and time of conflict. Healthy conflict is often characterized by attempt of humiliate people in a public space. This is extremely poisonous, and as it should be avoided at all cost, because putting someone down in front of their peers is one of the most powerful negative things that you can do to an individual. It can destroy their sense of confidence, it can destroy their sense of self-worth in the team. It can lead them to harbor feelings of revenge and destruction of the other individual. You will always create more problems for yourself than you would ever hope to solve. So focus instead of being very mindful of the right place and right time for people to have conversation, which is going to lead to conflict. As Aristotle once said, anyone can be hungry, but to be hungry at the right person, in the right way, at the right time, that is the real skill. So how can you make sure that you are guiding your team towards the right kind of conflict? Well, the first step is to recognize what is happening in your team at the moment. Is it recognized by healthy conflict issues, or is it unhealthy? Once you are decided that, you can decide how to push ahead. So that moves you to step number two, finding the right space and time for the conversation to occur. Once you are realized that you have the time and a space for conversation to occur, you actually need to initiate it. Invite people to have conversations that are going to be difficult. Do not be afraid of the difficulty. It is okay for the people to be emotional. Some people might choose to cry. That is also completely fine, as long as it is done in an appropriate way, in which they feel they are expressing themselves rather than reacting negatively to the situation. What you do not want to do is strive emotion, because people are naturally emotional, and some people need to express these emotions a little bit in an appropriate way. So your role here is really to move more to be a referee rather than a judge. So what you are trying to do is referee the discussion between your people and your team, and allow you the conflict to come out, as it often brings real issue to the table and also allows the space for true innovation to take place, while it's avoiding the unhealthy behavior. So in summary, what this model has been about? It has been about the idea of conflict and recognizing the conflict is inevitable in a teams, and even healthy if managed in a constructive manner. This is because healthy conflicts allows you to challenge the status quo. You can challenge reality bubbles that you might be in, and often leads to positive innovation breakthrough. Your challenge as a 21st century leader is to find the right balance between unhealthy and healthy behavior, and apply the right action in the right way at the right time. This is where we can see where communication skill comes in, because it is about making sure you are using the communication skill to manage the environment or to referee the environment, so that the conflict is on the healthy side, not on the unhealthy side. Finally, building on the learning of the previous module, it is important to recognize that unhealthy conflict destroys social capital. So while in the previous module you have learned that the importance of the social infrastructure, unhealthy conflict destroys the social infrastructure and undoes all the hard work that you have been doing. That completes the conflict module. Make sure that you are not afraid of conflict as 21st century leader. Address the real issues in hand, and that will go away long way towards establishing yourself as a credible and effective leader in their place. Wisdom of the system. Use your judgment and trust in it. Do not wait for the things to go wrong. What were your three key learnings points? What are they? Why are they important? What will you stop doing, start doing, and continue to do?